Hi, everybody. Welcome to Peopleizer, the place to empower you. Today, we will be talking about pension and specifically around pension, the risk that seems to be around pension right now. To talk about this topic, Andrew is joining us today. Andrew is one of our subject matter experts on asset allocation at Peopleizer, and he's also an entrepreneur. Andrew, it's a pleasure to have you.
Likewise. Thank you.
To get started, let's so for the people who are watching us and watching this video, let's start with describing the different type of pension, because that is useful to give a bit of context to these people, and especially I think you call them the three pillars, right? If I'm correct.
Yeah. So this is sometimes there is a variation from country to country. Like not all three pillars exist in every country, but in general, in most the Western countries, at least, you have three pillars, or at least some of them. And the idea is that you first have the state pension. This is not actually some money that you're paying into some fund yourself.
So that's pillar number one, right?
Yes, pillar number one.
Okay.
And this is just something paid from the current taxpayers to the current pensioners. It's like some kind of minimum that the government designates, and then you're paying for them, and then you're hoping that when it's time for you to get a pension, there will be some taxpayers who will pay for you back then. So that's pillar number one.
Okay.
And
what's pillar number two?
Yes, pillars number 2 and 3, it's an actual kind of fund from your own money that you build up over time. Usually pillar number 2 is if you're an employee, your corporate pension. So your employer maybe takes something from your salary, they might add something to it. There's tax benefits, and this goes to some pension funds, and that builds up hopefully your pension over time. And pillar number 3 is something extra you can do yourself, but it still follows the pension rules of the government. And there's probably tax benefits as well. So pillars number 2 and 3, this is an actual money that's your own money that you've been putting aside one way or another, or your employer has been doing that for you, and that's money that's yours, and it's specifically allocated to your name. And it has been costing you something on top of the taxes you've been paying on. So it is really your money.
Okay. So three pillar, and then what is the core, the main difference between those three pillars?
Well, so as I said, the first pillar is just a state pension. It's not an actual fund that you build up. It's just like a sort of social benefit, basically. That's the way to see it. So it's just paid from the current money that the government receives from taxes and maybe other sources.
So basically, someone paying tax is paying for your pension.
Yes, directly. And pillars number 2 and 3, this is just this is a fund, like an investment fund that you're building, and you're giving it to some organization, and they invest on your behalf and try to make sure there's more money in the future than it is now. That's the idea.
Okay. So we've got those three pillars. Now the important, the exciting piece of this talk is the risk, right? What are the risks? And is there a common risk across those three pillars?
So one of the main risks to ask yourself is because nowadays people often ask themselves, do I trust the government? Do I trust the system? So if in a few, if the government decides, the pension age will be later than it is now, is that going to affect me? Will I see the pension at all? And do I trust the government in case of the pillar 1 to be able to pay the pension? Will there be enough tax revenue in the future? And also, in case of pillar number 2 and 3, what happens to the fund itself, the investment it makes, and will the government maybe intervene and say, oh, these are bad times, we're going to steal the money from these funds? Is that something that could happen? So these are possible risks.
So, but a common risk on the trust, right?
Yes.
Across those three pillars. Okay. Solidarity. Is there any specific risk for one of those pillars, or?
Well, I think we covered the specifics actually as well, because we can go into a bit more detail. So for pillar 2 and 3, when you have when it's actually your own fund that you build up, there's might be a counterparty risk. It's usually some organization managing it, institution, and then you might have confidence that if something like that happens, is the government going to bail them up? But if it starts to happen to a lot of institutions, maybe that won't be the case anymore. And the composition of the fund itself, what are they investing in? So traditionally, it's been low risk stocks and bonds. So that's usually quite fine. But what if there is a major market crash and then it doesn't recover for a long time? Then you might lose a lot of money. What if there is a big inflation like we see now and it continues? And because those are relatively safe investments, they don't make a lot of money from year to year. So it might be actually below inflation. So those are also things to consider. And the point is, when it's in the system, you don't really have control over it. It could be that the government in the future says, "Oh, we need some extra money, so we force the pension funds to buy our debt." So they basically borrow money from pension funds, and that may not be so good for you if you have pension fund in the system.
Definitely not. Okay, that's for the risk, right? Now, what can people do to what approach can they have versus those risks? And especially, so let's start with pillar 1, for instance.
Well, so pillar 1, you don't really have control over that, and as I say, you don't have. It might seem strange to people, but it's not really. In a way, it's not your own money, because it's just a social benefit. That's kind of, there is a promise that it will be paid.
Okay.
So one of the things that you can do is that you should not rely on the idea that it's going to be there by the time of your retirement. And you should try to find something else to build something else for yourself that will be your retirement.
And that sorry to interrupt you, but that requires a strong mindset change from the person perspective, because once as you have paid your tax during 10, 20, 30, 40 years, I think 42 or 43 years, like in France, right? You really expect to get that money. It's basically,
yes.
You assume, and there's no way you wouldn't think it is possible that you don't get that money. But unfortunately, you've got to come to realize that there is a risk on this money. Yeah.
Well, so one of the points also is that if you're paying all this money from your taxes, and you feel like not just for this, but in general, you're paying a lot in taxes and you're not getting enough back for it, or it's uncertain, then maybe you can think of how you can minimize your taxes, and that can be done in a lot of different ways, in legal ways. One of the most simple ways is you might consider to change the country for a more taxi-friendly place. So if you feel like, oh, I'm not going to get anything for it anyway, might as well pay less somewhere else, for example. And then you have extra money that you can use and invest yourself to build your own pension.
Okay, great. Pillar number 2, what approach can people have versus the risk?
So usually people see these kind of pension funds in pillars 2 and 3 as something positive, because they see that they look at the tax benefits, for example. That's one of the main things. Or they look at it, oh, there's this investment that's building up, I don't have to do anything about it, it's quite safe. But they don't have control over it, and the problem is also the government keeps changing the rules about it, and especially during the current climate, that can be a problem. So that might not be so easy for everybody to do, but what I would always say is don't use something like this. Build your own pension fund, build your own investments, learn how to either learn how to do it really well or hire someone to help you with that. And just maybe you will not get the tax benefits, but you will have something where you can decide when you can take the pension out, where you can decide what it's invested in, where the government cannot control it, so that's what I would say. Invest yourself. Or if that's not an option for you to learn it, or it's too complicated, you can hire an investment advisor.
Yeah, you can delegate this job
Yes.
basically to you can pay some people to define your plan and define a strategy for you based on your specific needs. Yeah.
And if you're a relatively high net worth individual, oftentimes your bank helps you with that for free. Like they say, oh, if you have over a certain amount of money in our bank, we give you a free investment advisor. So that can be an option for some people as well.
Yeah, if the bank is working in your interest, it could be an option. Definitely.
That's something you might have to check and think about critically.
We've got to be careful.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on this topic?
No, I think we covered the main risks and the main ideas. Why I don't like the state-controlled pension. It's basically about the fact that you can't decide when you take it out, how you take it out. The government might even decide what needs to be in it. Yeah. And the things they're investing in at the moment, that's also things that don't look that good right now. So those are the main points. One point is a lot of...
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, one point is that a lot of people nowadays have pension plan one way or another, in pillar 2 or 3, for example, especially 2, because let's say they worked somewhere at some company, they filled up pension. It cost them some money. Maybe they didn't want it, but they didn't have a choice because that was part of the employment contract. And now they're thinking, oh, it's not looking that good. Is there some way I can take that money out so that I can control it? And that depends really from country to country. Usually they don't let you take it out, but in some circumstances, especially if you're leaving the country, they might allow you to take it out or take out part of it if you're transferring it to a provider in another country or using it for a specific purpose. So that's something definitely worth looking into, especially if you can transfer it to a provider in a new country, and maybe in that country, the provider lets you withdraw it. So that can be a solution.
All right, that's good. Thanks for all those advice, Andrew. If people have additional comments, answers, question, they can definitely reach out to Peopleizer or to you directly. We'll put your contact below. And thanks for your time. That was really nice.
Thank you also.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers.